Hey there, it's Kris Overstreet, the Redneck Gaijin, and as you might be able to see, I'm going to be doing some F1 2020. What you're about to see, in fact, is some footage of the last few days where late at night, I've been taking on some open lobbies in ranked racing. Now, a couple of things that you have to remember. One, I am still very much a beginner at this game. Two, I'm very conservative in my driving. I'm not really pushing it to the limit. I'm focusing on getting around the track safely more than anything else, which means I'm slow. And it doesn't help that I'm using a $25 cheap Xbox knockoff controller that has an enormous amount of play. Well, it doesn't look enormous from there, but trust me, when the maximum lock left to right is only about 1.5 inches, having any dead zone in the middle really eats into your performance, especially since it makes it impossible to fine steer a vehicle. And considering that a little bit of steering and then a correction throws you completely off the racing line, that's a big thing in Formula One. So, with the excuses out of the way, enjoy these shots of me completely sucking at F1 2020. One-shot quali, so my first ever lap around this track is going to be me qualifying for the race. Oh boy. Been interesting to meet this guy from Brazil called Segundo. Is that him calling his place in the race? Fin Segundo. Alright, here we go. Eat it through that chicane. I think this is Parabolica, which I completely blew. Only one person finished late worse than me who actually finished their quali lap at all. So I'm right in the middle of the pack, in a perfect position to get completely clobbered. This is Future Kris, dubbing over these races, and as you're about to see, I got this first race of this session off to an absolutely perfect beginning. When Mark's Q up here, yeah, he did that. I try my best to consider everything there, but he was going slower than everyone else and decided to pull into the racing line, and he ruined my race pretty much from the get-go, not that this helped. As you can see here, it was chaos all the way through the first 3 corners. But I ended that chaos with a badly compromised wing, and I knew that I was going to have to come into the pits to get that wing replaced no matter what. But I still had to limp my way around this first lap in order to make that happen. This crash, however, yeah, that was entirely my fault there, diving into a gap that I ought to have known was not going to be there by the time I got to it. Bear in mind that I'm driving here with all the available assists. Every assist that F1 2020 has that's available to me in these open lobbies. And I'm still this bad. Fortunately, most of the other drivers appear to be pretty close to my level of suck because, after all, this is a placement race. None of us have an actual race ranking as yet, or at least very few of us do. We're here to get that ranking. So I'm waiting, and off we go with the new wing, and now the goal is to be the best of the triple. Of course, it doesn't help that Toto Voss here tries to pass me up the inside, and I don't notice until boom, there we go. And of course, he doesn't give me the actual room. Like in racing, racing etiquette says you give people enough room, at least just enough room, to navigate a corner safely. Toto Voss, not interested. Now the thing is, I tried to keep up with Toto Voss, but as you can see here, I'm making massive errors, or even minor errors are enough to set me back tenths of seconds in a game where a second per lap is as good as a mile, literally. But more to the point, well, you're about to see in a moment more to the point. If you thought that my bumps and rubs were over with the first couple of laps, well, you are quite sadly mistaken, because here comes Gabriele Aught 3, to tell me otherwise. Yep, I have no earthly idea how I didn't at least break a wing. In fact, I don't know how I wasn't completely wrecked out of the race there, but Gabriele didn't care. And that was pretty much the story of my race, except for picking up one last position when the guy in front of me spun out and went to the wall. All in all, it was not a terribly auspicious beginning, but it was very much fitting for my actual skill level and how I would perform over the next 3 nights. And I was a minute 06 slower than the winner. My fastest lap time was 1:25.4. Gabriele was a little bit slower than me, which is probably why he yeeted me, damn it. Toto Voss was way, way faster. He shouldn't have been back in the back, and I don't blame him for passing me. Alright, here's Austria. I did a race or two around this one yesterday. I'm not great at it at all, but I have a little bit more experience than I did here at Monza. Braking a little bit early there at the second turn. That's even if he doesn't finish the damn lap. 12. Yeah, that was a shitty lap indeed. Only one slower, and I was 3/4 of a second slower than the next person forward. 8 seconds off the lead. And here we are at Austria, where with more or less the same pack, I was expecting to do at least slightly better, and I should have known better than that. Because as you see, as we get off the start, my assists get me a jump start, but I have to back out of it immediately to try to avoid wrecks, which turns out to be kind of hopeless. Turn 1, it's just pinball all over the place. And then I get locked up with O2D4, and yeah, this happens. One turn, and I am out of the race. And you can imagine exactly how thrilled I felt about that. The walk of shame, as my race ends that quickly. Now, after the fact, I went back and looked at things, and as you can see here, we're already 3 wide here between myself, Silencio the Demon, and O2Die4. O2Die4 must be to my immediate left because I'm bumping with him, and it begins not so gradually, this is way slowed down, shoving me over to the right. And I get drifting over to the right, and I don't want to go in the grass, and I'm a bit mad that he's pushing me, so I nudged over to the left. Then I get nudged over a bit more aggressively to the left, and that was my fatal mistake. The back end steps out, and I may have been helped out in this, because if you'll notice here, here's O2Die4, my immediate left, Silencio the Demon's on the other side of him, and that red arrow sweeping way past us on the left is our good friend, Gabriele03. He profits from the rest of us, O2Die4 gets wing damage, and Silencio the Demon and I wreck out of the race right here. And as you would expect, especially considering my experience in the previous race, I pretty much put all the blame for this on Gabriele03. I spent the rest of the race as a spectator watching Gabriele03, hoping that he'd make some fatal blunder or run into somebody else or meet some kind of karma. Unfortunately, he never did. Fuck you too. I didn't even get one lap because everybody here drives like shit. I have driven Canada. I did shitty at Canada, but I have driven it. I get no track lap time on this. If I had not got a disqualification, would still have been too damn slow. More than half the field got a disqualification. This is going to be fun. So, Canada. After the last 2 races, considering we're still mostly running with the same people, you would expect that the first corner was going to be a complete clusterfuck. And guess what? You're pretty much correct. DP76 off, I get bumped way right, And by the time all is said and done, the only reason I'm not dead last at this point is because of DP76's spin out. And Joni S06 is going to make good that his position right here. Of course, the big problem here is that I was assuming that the ERS system that allows you to put electrical motors to work. Oh, there's the bump from DP76, which I wasn't inclined to give him the space, but he didn't really want to give me the choice. But I managed to get through that chaos. As I was saying, ERS, which would allow me to use the hybrid motors to add horsepower to the car, I thought that was part of the assists that were turned on. Turns out, no, you do not get an assist for ERS, you have to hit those manually. And since I pretty much never touched that button in all of these 3 nights of open lobby racing, yeah, I was consistently slower than pretty much everybody else unless they fucked up royally. And as a result, anytime somebody passed me by, they were pretty much gone for good, and gone a long way for good. So yeah, this is pretty much my race. Bumped, hit, banged around, left for dead when passed, and only coming in any kind of reasonable time, or reasonable position I should say, because of the even graver mistakes by my fellow plebs. Well, plebs is actually too generous. Fellow fuck-ups. And incidentally, if you're wondering why I'm doing this voiceover after the fact, you may have noticed during my qualifying runs that the sound quality is terrible. I did not realize just how loud the game sounds was going to be when it was recorded in OBS. As a result, rather than put you through that for all these races, I'm just doing these lowlights with voiceover. Best lap, 1:14.5. That's the slowest best lap but one. Incidents. DP76, collision with Redneck Gaijin, but only a warning. And somehow it ended up being Belgium, with only 4 players. I haven't driven Belgium before either. Spa-Francorchamps, that's... Oh, this is going to be pretty challenging. Bus stop chicane, the Eau Rouge combo. Had to live for Eau Rouge. Oh, that chunder steer. Okay, coming up on the bus stop. Which I executed not bad. Alright, so what's the final verdict? Second out of 4. I have 75% chance of getting a podium here. Belgium Grand Prix with 4 runners, and it's worth bearing in mind that since I have all the assists on, I tend to get a better start off the line than most of the others. I have the assist with subtraction, but then it comes to the first corner, and yeah, Gabriele 3 gave me a couple of love taps right there to remind me that he wanted past. And then here on the straight, since I wasn't using overtake, he did get past, and that looked almost exactly like he was trying to swipe me off the road. And so I had to evade, and yeah. I thought this was my race over right here because I knew for a fact I was going to be much slower than most other drivers anyway. That's one of the reasons why I don't contest that much. But I noticed that Gabriele 3 and NJ Harrison were fighting hammer and tongs there, and I figured they'd let me catch up. And then, as I watched NJ Harrison start to drop behind and saw how he was steering, I figured, oh, this guy is actually worse than I am. The problem is, remember how I showed the dead zone in my steering? I barely have control of my vehicle, and I don't think he's any better. So I spent these turns trying to figure out how to get past him, and then he solves the problem for me. And that little gift to me is pretty much the race. I stay well ahead of NJ Harrison because he keeps fucking up, and I keep falling a little bit more and more behind Gabriele 3 and Alpha Kurderkek because I'm not using overtake and they are. And as a result, well, I do get it my 75% chance. I am on the podium. Just. Alright. One shot quali. Ah, here we go. I cut the first corner and already invalidated out. Well, I don't damn well know. I just know that out of 5, I am stone cold last. Bahrain. New drivers, new group, same old bad me. Now, the driving assists that I've got engaged mean that I get a relatively good start off the line, although I've got not much of any place to go with it. I'm crowded in on the inside, which means my first turn was going to be bad anyway, but my fellow drivers decided to help me along with that with a pretty solid punt to the back. Would have been worse if Tommy Shelby hadn't ghosted through me. And of course, the bumper cars continues with Run These Secrets deciding that I need to be crowded out to the left, and because I'm developing a bit better survival instinct, I went ahead and bailed. Now, as I mentioned before, I'm not using the overtake button, so any places that I get after this point rely on other people fucking up, like Run These Secrets here gets a bit of payback from Tommy Shelby, shoved off to the left, and as far as I'm concerned, he's out. Of course, I could have caught up to one or two of the people in front of me if, during the course of the race, I hadn't consistently got that hairpin turn horribly wrong every single time. So, that was the story of the race. A solid 4th place for me, gradually losing ground to the 3 ahead of me, while the people behind me keep changing their order as they keep banging into each other and or spinning off the track. All in all, it could have been better, could have been worse. What it was slightly south of mediocre. And my best lap was actually slightly slower than Run These Secrets, so if he got in trouble is his problem. But yeah, I was way slower than 1, 2, and 3. Like 2 seconds a lap slower from the looks of things, at least. I'd like to give Brazil a shot. Again, never drove it. Let's go out there and embarrass myself. Damn it. Yeah, I cut it too hard. And Desert Beast didn't even put in a time. Okay. It would be nice if he didn't actually show up, if he's not going to put in a lap time. Same dude. That guy with the shit name on him. I've edited out a lot of the waiting that came up before this. I left this part in just to give you an idea of how much Can You Speak English's lagging was really delaying everything, pissing me off, and cutting into actual driving time on the night. And of course, the fact that he chose a deliberately offensive username didn't help my mood in the least. But, in fact, this wait went on so long, so horribly long, that I thought he was just going to ping timeout and that I would be able to ghost through his car when the lights finally went out. Seriously, we were waiting here on the grid for 2 minutes before the game finally let us start. Finally, the lights go red, and I'm fully expecting, remember, that Can You Speak English will be ghosted out when I get here. Was he? Nope. So that's my front wing gone because Can You Speak English's connection sucked. I got a 2-second penalty on top of that. And EMA Tuning, who ran into him before me, well, that was the AI running into him, so he doesn't get a penalty. But either way, EMA Tuning and I have our races ruined, and Can You Speak English now finally gets off the starting line and starts making his run. Meanwhile, here I am. My front wing is busted, so I have no downforce on the front to speak of, and it's raining here at Brazil, so I am just trying to baby my car around the track, something EMA Tuning couldn't even accomplish. I'm just trying to get back to the pits so I can get a replacement, and then Jeff, the AI mechanic, decides to ask me if I want to change strategy. And I screw up my race even worse than it already was, trying to find the button that says, yes, please confirm change. Never did figure that out. It apparently was the right direction pad button, but I was too busy splitting my attention between that window and the street and the roadway. And all those fuck-ups let Can You Speak English get around me, and he's on his way to pretty much dominating the rest of this race, which is absolutely unfair and pissed me off absolutely no end, but what can you do? I've still got a race to run. So, into the pits, get a new wing, and back out there to see what I can salvage. The only good news is that EMA Tuning also had to come in, and he was actually having worse time getting around the track than I did. I get given the gift of a place when Desert Beast crashes out DNFs. I don't know whether that was unassisted, which is entirely possible because rain, or if Can You Speak English actually helped him into a barrier someplace. Either way, that was pretty much the last space that I made up because obviously I am a half minute behind everybody, and not going everybody except EMA Tuning, and I'm not going to make up that distance, not in the rain, not with a bad wing. In the process of trying to find the button to confirm my pit strategy change, I'd accidentally hit the overtake button, and not having realized it, I'd left it on pretty much the entire rest of the race. It didn't help. So, in the end, 5th place, with a 2-second penalty, and absolutely no disposition to be charitable to certain other drivers. Okay, and I got an achievement for that run, apparently. I guess my 10th... Driver of the fucking... God, fuck you! Fuck you and your laggy-ass car. Skill rating gold. Oh, fuck you. So he's sandbagging us all, is what he's doing. Yeah, a different one. We got away from the asshole. Well, that asshole, anyway. Can I get a clean one-shot quali? Signs want to know, but we'll try. Bad, definitely on an absolute scale, but for me, I'll stop to go. Okay. I'm going to be ahead of at least 2 because I got a clean lap. 3, 4. You're fucking shitting me. I got pole position. Oh, this is gonna suck. This is going to suck. Pole position by a mile. Pole position by a mile on a track I don't really know. I still can't believe I got a pole position. I'm gonna get run down. And that certainly was my full expectation as we started off this run of Belgium. But thanks to assists, I got another good start off the line. And as you see right here, somebody tried to cut it on my inside, then backed out of it one way or the other, and I made it around turn 1 cleanly, and not only in the lead, but pulling away. That absolutely surprised me, and I kept looking behind me, fully expecting my blunders, like these little ones here through Eau Rouge, fully expecting that those would allow my opponents to catch up with me. And for a second here, it looked like Dillboy was going to overtake me into this first chicane here. And then, all of a sudden, I get through it, blunder my way through it, but apparently he did worse. And so he starts falling back again rapidly, and I've opened up a second lead. So I make it around, and I'm still in the lead at the end of the first lap, and I simply cannot believe it. Now, if I'd been any good, I would have pulled away even more, but remember, I didn't know that I still needed to use the overtake, and that plus my blunders did bring Dillboy back into the game. And so, here we go into the second sector on the second lap, and all it took was one really bad corner, which we haven't hit quite yet. But Dillboy's right behind me, and Luddy Dini's right behind him, and there I open the door for Dillboy, and almost opened the door for Luddy Dini as well, but he has a bit of a sideways moment and goes off a bit behind me and has to recover that somewhat. Now bear in mind I'm watching Dillboy ahead of me, and I notice that he is even worse at finding the racing line than I am. And so I'm thinking, I can still have this race. I can still catch this guy. But I remember I did not know that the assists were not handling ERS. And so without ERS, Dillboy was able, just about, to stay ahead of me, and even as the race went on, gradually build up a little bit of a lead. I did catch up to him once or twice, like here, gave him a couple of nudges, but I couldn't find a way around him when I got close, and I didn't get close all that often. Of course, I tried to force my way into a closer position, but I kept forgetting that that stupid assist line there is there for a reason. It shows the fastest path, and so what with my ignoring it, trying to find a way to catch up to Dillboy, I let Luddy Dini back into the action. He caught up, and yeah, it didn't take him all that long to find a way around me. Of course, I helped him out every chance I could in that respect. All it took was a nightmare run through the Eau Rouge combo and DRS, and that plus almost certainly ERS usage let Luddy Dini pass me on the straight, and once he was ahead of me, I thought that was going to be all she wrote, especially when I made this massive blunder here coming out of the chicane and going into the second sector. And things only snowballed from there, really. By the time we get around to begin the fifth and final lap, Luddy Dini is almost a second ahead of me, and he is right on Dillboy's tail. My one hope, though, is that these two are going to fight, and if they're fighting, there is a chance that they will take each other out and let me swoop in for either a second or, God help me, an actual win. And sure enough, Luddy and Dillboy are going side by side through the second sector, hammer and tong, switching places, and there he goes. Dillboy ends up pinging off the inside wall, but I back out of it to make sure that I don't run into him. Now, he's certainly got damage, and I am now catching up to him, except I keep making mistakes, and this time it's bigger mistakes than he's making. He is taking it easy, or trying to, because he's got a broken wing up front, and whenever I do catch up to him, I've got no place to go. His car is exactly where I need to be if I'm going to pass him at all. This is the last lap. Here comes the bus stop chicane. This is my last chance to make something happen, and I choke badly. Now I have my own busted wing, and it's a drag race to the finish line, which I cannot win because I do not have ERS. Still, I'm on the podium. I really was not expecting that. Oh. Okay, there I am on the right. Fastest lap, Mariano, and Monster should have been way ahead of us. He must have got he had to take a pit stop, looks like. Race director, incidents. Yeah, I don't appear on the lit except for a couple of track limits down here on lap 5, which I don't remember seeing. It's gonna be Brazil. And I just had practice driving it in the wet. Yeah, and I also had practice having my wing ripped off because of a laggy driver. So hopefully I can do better this time. Lost at least a second, maybe 2 seconds in that one corner. 4th, okay. Not on pole this time. Actually, that's worse. I'm going to be in the absolute middle of the pack. I'm going to get annihilated. And 5 seconds off the pole pace. No surprise. And here I am, back at Brazil, starting 4th on the grid and fully expecting to get collected in turn 1. But thanks to assist, I get my usual start. I try to get on the inside of Dini. He doesn't move quickly enough and I have to back out. And since I'm on the inside, it means I get a very slow curve and let a lot of people pass by, which actually turns out to be a blessing because it meant I stayed out of trouble and I kept my front wing intact. So I had to give up a couple of spaces, but I am still very much in the race and watching ahead of me, hoping for someone else to make a mistake that would let me past. Of course, I'm making my own mistakes, as you've already seen. And right here, I get assisted by Nelson, who decides to actually nudge me around the corner. Of course, instead of spinning off the track, I actually get turned where I needed to go better than I could do myself. But on the next tight corner, I just come to a complete stop, over braking, and that lets Nelson come on by. But it doesn't take me too long to figure out that, yeah, Nelson is not God's gift to sim racing, and if I can stay with him, I should be able to find my way around him. So, I keep watching him as he goes way wide of the line, no trouble, and it's already the end of lap 1, and I am still not in a great position, but not in a terrible position either. So I keep driving and I keep driving, trying to find some way, any way to catch up to and pass Nelson. Meanwhile, Dini has got some damage. I try to get around him on the left, but I oversteer and go off into the grass. But that's not a big problem because 1, Nelson is also having steering problems because of his bad driving, so he's staying back, and 2, Dini has got to go into the pits to get a new wing to fix his problems, so I pick up the position anyway. So, now, so far as I'm concerned at this point, the race is myself and Nelson and pretty much nobody else. And I'm just watching and trying to make something happen, still screwing up my braking, so I gain time, I lose time, keep watching, until finally, he opens the door so wide that even I can't help but get through. Goodbye, Nelson, and hello, 5th place. And that was pretty much my entire race. Mario Mariano stayed at least a second and a half behind me, pretty much the rest of the way around. And Del Boy actually overtook Nelson, and both of them fell well behind me. So, 5th place out of 8. All in all, probably where my skill actually deserved to plant me at this point in this crowd. Female racer. Glad to see that. Who is the female racer, I wonder? Purple Llama. Okay. Dini and Dill Boy both had faster laps than I did, but they got into trouble, so I profited from that. I at least once, had a slightly faster lap than Mario Mariano, but again, not enough. And I was nearly 3 seconds off Monster's lead pace, looks like. I don't think I have ever run around Japan at all, ever, so this is going to be informative for my final race of the night. Here we go. They overestimated. either. Just try and set any time as long as it's clean. I'm going to be damn slow, but... But screw it, even with the bad controller and the unfamiliar tracks and getting my ass handed to me by faster drivers, I'm having fun. I completely fucked that up. Is there only one DRS on the whole damn track? Well, I got a time. 5th? 2nd. Oh boy. No pressure. Were there disqualifications? Because that was a shit lap. 2 disqualifications, yeah. Mario Mariano is apparently even less familiar with this track than I am. So, you've just seen my first lap ever around the Suzuka circuit in Japan, and I start off on the front row, driving my second lap. I get clipped by Purple Llama slightly, but it doesn't seem to interfere with my driving. And again, I pull out to a bit of a lead. And again, I am absolutely astonished, but somehow I'm managing to hold it, or actually even improve on it, through the sweeping S's here, despite my being lame at best at taking these corners at speed. Of course, all the good things do have to come to an end, and bear in mind that when I was driving these, I still had no idea that the automatic assists were not handling ERS deployment. I made it across to begin the second lap, still a second ahead of Purple Llama 69. That was not going to last very much longer at all. As you can see, that sequence of that time through the S's, Virtual Kiwi Racer made up a 1.5 seconds on me in that section alone. And it wasn't too much longer after that, thanks to that little kick. Yeah, he wanted the spot, he took it. And once past me, since again I had no clue about ERS and the overtake button, once past me, he was gone, pretty much for good. All I could do was keep it in his slipstream as much as possible, hope and pray for DRS, and just keep working at it. But meanwhile, Purple Llama 69, who had a bit of a spin-off earlier, has made up the time and is right on my ass. Doing my best through the S-curves, but as you can see, Virtual Kiwi Racer just pretty much ran away from me. And then when I got around to the back DRS section, Purple Llama was able to just come right on up onto me. And yet, thanks to getting through the 4 chicanes in halfway decent condition, I managed to stay ahead of her, at least coming onto the 4th lap. At this point, I'm a 1.5 seconds behind Virtual Kiwi Racer, and I'm fighting like hell trying to stay on the track, but more importantly, trying to keep ahead of Purple Llama 69 and hold my tenuous grip on this second spot on the podium. And I actually managed to get a little bit further ahead, but it's not to last. In fact, all it really takes is just one slip up, and there it is. Yeah, blowing that curve that badly was more than enough to give Purple Llama the open door, and I let her have it. I'm not going to block her route. I'm going to just let her come on through. I know when I'm licked. So now, I'm still looking behind me. I mean, Mario Mariano is still way behind, and Nelson's out of the race. But things could still happen, and I'm trying like hell to stay within DRS range of Purple Llama. And I've even found the overtake button, and I'm trying manually to see if it'll help. It doesn't, because even with the overtake button, I'm still a bungler and I'm green at this track. Case in point. So yeah, that was pretty much it for the race. To speak of, I end up coming across the line for my third podium, my third place out of 5. Another really unearned podium. 3rd out of 5 is not really podium material, but they give it to you anyway. And I'm a bit annoyed with Virtual Kiwi Racer for rear-ending me and getting around that way. I would have given him all sorts of clean opportunities to get the spot. Okay, race director, incidents. Yeah, and he got nothing for punting me. Not even a warning. Should have practiced this. Instead, I practiced Brazil, and before that, what was the other one I practiced before this? Spa-Francorchamps, was it? No, well, maybe it was. Well, that's gonna be shitty. Fourth. No surprise. Probably going to be a 5-person grid. How badly off was I? 3 seconds off the leader. And here we go for another run at Austria. And remember when I said earlier that basic racing etiquette says that you leave your fellow racer at least enough room to make it around corners safely? Well, Vicano never heard that. And that one little bump was enough to send me down dead last in a group of 5. But I'm watching Don Ginaldo up front ahead of me in 4th place, and I realize that he is actually no better, at least as far as the mechanics of driving are concerned, than I am. And so I keep thinking, he's takeable. I can have him if I can just get and keep within DRS range from the 3rd lap on. I might be able to take him over. So I do the best that I can. I start cutting corners relentlessly, and it isn't all that long before I start getting warnings. I never did get a penalty, but I did get plenty of warnings from this race, and my safety rating suffered. And it didn't hurt at all that every once in a while, Don Ginaldo would give me a big gift. I mean, this time on lap 2, he took that corner nice and beautifully. But 1 lap later, he opens the door wide. And for a second there, I think that I'm actually going to be able to overtake him. Unfortunately, it's not to be, because remember, I am pretty clueless about the overtake button and my ERS deployment, and he is able to take advantage of that on this track, which has a lot of power stretches that are thoroughly suited for higher speed, higher acceleration vehicles. As a result, I end the race pretty much the way I began it, stone cold last. My fastest lap was only marginally faster than Don Ginaldo's, and he had position on me, so looks like it's going to be Brazil. Invalid track time, damn it. Turned in too early and it cost me. Yeah, I would have been dead last on my time, just on the merits. Right. So, back here at Brazil, which is apparently one of the most popular tracks among online drivers. And right away, we get some really dirty driving, and it only gets worse from there, to the point where as soon as I see things start to bump, I bail. On the first corner, I bail way right, which puts me pretty much in the back of the pack. But the dirty driving also gives me a couple of gifts, so despite me taking the first set of corners horribly, I'm not in dead last place. And fortunately, Killen here is not only ghosted out, he's got a drive-through penalty. He's not going to be that much of a factor in the rest of the race. At this point, I'm actually learning a bit better how to drive this track, making some improvement, but only a little, really. And more importantly, my good old friend Don Ginaldo is the guy ahead of me, and I already know he can be taken. He can be taken. All I have to do is make fewer mistakes than he does, and he is giving me a lot of mistakes to work with, for which I am quite grateful. He keeps attempting to get around Iceman, but it's just not happening, and eventually he has to give it up and slot in behind. All in all, that wasn't a good first lap, but it could have gone oh so much worse. By the time I was coming around to begin the third lap, Don Ginaldo has fallen back, and another driver has spun out and given me a free position, so I'm thinking, now's the time to make a move. But Don Ginaldo brakes a lot harder than I do. There goes my wing, and there goes my race. Now, it's no longer a fight to get around Don Ginaldo so much. It's a fight just to maintain my position against anybody that might possibly come back, which means not going off the track and not spinning around. And yet, despite all this, I still keep getting little gifts. Twitch Wind, whatever his name is, was leading the race early on, and then he finds the grass and spins out. And meanwhile, Don Ginaldo, who doesn't have damage, is still keeping me in the hunt, tempting me with the prospect that I might take his position. I even start experimenting with the overtake button, trying to find some way to catch the rest of the way up to him and get around him, but it's not to be. He finishes just about a second ahead of me, and I come in 5th out of 8. I'd have had a chance if I hadn't bumped Don Ginaldo and rested my wing. But then again, the reason I bumped him was because he over-braked. My fastest lap was actually faster than Don Ginaldo's, but 4th would be about where I ought to have been. I can see clearly now, Bahrain is here. I can see all the drivers in my way. I'm gonna bust my front wing, sure as shit. Shit. Yeah, blew it on the last corner. Fuck. I think I would have been in the middle of the pack on this one, except for that disqualification. So, I'm in the back, and I'm going to have to watch my braking. Back to Bahrain, and I am starting out pretty much where I belong. Although, remember, thanks to my assists, I'm consistently getting decent starts off the grid. And I'm starting coming up the inside behind Iceman, trying to make up some positions going into turn 1, and I missed my braking point just a bit and give Iceman a love tap in the side pod. And me getting off center like this, plus the crowding, Don Ginaldo manages to get past me at this point, but I'm still ahead of Jake. Now, you remember Gabriele Aught 3 and a couple of other people that I've named so far? Well, like them, Jake is going to be my special friend. And so, as I navigate through the pinball machine of the first half of lap 1, trying to settle out my position here, Jake is right on my ass, and he's going to be giving me a couple of love taps here and there, especially as I come into this corner and I give Iceman a love tap of my own, the second one this race. He's not going to forget or forgive that, I'm pretty sure. And remember, I am still a little bit on the clueless, or at least forgetful side now about overtake. And I'm still having problems, even though Bahrain is one of the tracks that I've got more practice at. I'm still messing up several of the corners. And yeah, there's the bump that I was talking about from Jake. Somehow I hold it together, but there he goes on the inside, trying to pass me. And then he just keeps right on going, misses his braking point completely in his desire to get around me. allowing me to retake the position. And meanwhile, he's also brought Don Ginaldo back in, so we're going on to lap 2, and the fight for 4th is pretty damn serious. In fact, they both try and succeed in punching me off on the first turn. I'm not certain if... Oh, and there's Iceman also in the hunt now. Then Jake comes around after them. And now, in the hunt for 4th place, I am decidedly the underdog. Fortunately, Iceman and Jake are not going to get along any better than I've got along with Iceman, or Jake has got along with me. To make things better, Jake is no better a driver than I am, but I'm still running into the same problem. If I catch up with somebody, how do I actually get around them? Especially when they turn better than I do. So coming up onto lap 3, Jake and Iceman are still going at it. Jake's got around Iceman now, but they are very tightly together. They're fighting hard, and Iceman is not above getting a bit dirty. The two of them start slamming wheels, and they're both off. Jake is into the wall and out of the race, and Iceman has front wing damage. He's going to have to pit to have that replaced so that he can finish the race. 5th place is entirely mine, and up ahead of me is my good old friend Don Ginaldo, who is a worse driver than me in most respects, except for the fact that he understands how to use overtake. But I figured this out at this point. I know he can be had, so I actually start using overtake. The problem is I forget I've used it, and so I leave it on. Instead of using it to power my way out of corners and get a jump start on acceleration onto straights, I leave it on all the time, letting it run out because you're only allowed a limited amount of ERS on each lap. And so, although I keep catching up with Don Ginaldo, I'm not able to get the final payoff. Even so, on the final lap, I try to make something happen, and then I chicken out of it. Not just chicken out of it, but that corner cut not only got me a warning, it slowed me down big time going over the fat curbs there, which means I lost about half a track's worth of work in that one poorly made decision. Meanwhile, Real Fad and Don Ginaldo fighting for position, but not fighting terribly, well, not fighting with any great deal of competency. And so here I am. I'm actually in contention for a podium here. All I have to do is hope these guys screw up. Then we come to this hairpin, and I take it the worst of the three of us. And that is pretty much all she wrote. I mean, I've still got overtake. I can and I do kind of catch up with them, but this is the last lap. There's just not time to make anything else happen, and there's now enough of the separation between 3rd and 4th place to where the two of them are not really interfering with each other. So, in the end, 5th out of 8 total at the start. I'm seeing a trend. Alright, 5th of 8. Not great, but could have been worse. Looks like it's unanimous for Australia. Oh, that echo off the wall is scary as shit. Yeah, I'm gonna be well back. 1:25.1. That's actually a very good speed time for me. But it's only 5th in the field. Yeah, I'm not much ahead of the guys behind me either. And Sketched is really far ahead of everybody. Australia, the track I practiced most, the track that I'm best at, the track that I've just put in one of my best times on. And coming right out, I shit the bed pretty much immediately. Missing this corner completely, getting bumped here and there by the guys behind me. Ventano is still going to be not a good pal to me. And then, yep, there's Iceman again. I punt him, but good, and in the process, I break my front wing. But it's only in the yellow and only on one side, so I decide this is my best track. If I pit, I'm going to be stone cold last, period. So my best bet for any kind of good performance is to limp my way around and hope for the best. Of course, Mativati has different ideas, but his first attempt to pass me goes horribly wrong. Unfortunately, his second attempt goes quite a bit better. So yeah, Mativati is gone, he's on his way, and I'm certainly helping by giving him all the space in the world and then some. But I'm also bringing this character BT into play behind me, except that he takes himself out of play quite thoroughly at that point, and brings Iceman back in. Now, I've been playing bumper cars with Iceman the last 2 or 3 races, and he's not going to be charitable to me. So I'm running on, currently in 5th place as we start lap 4, still in 5th place as we start the final lap, and Iceman has made up a little bit of ground every lap, thanks in no small part to my broken wing. But fortunately, Sketched was the guy who was in the lead, who was pole position by 3 seconds. And he goes in the gravel on that curve, takes himself out of the race, gives me a free position that totally unearned, gives everybody a free position, really. And so, here we are coming through this last corner, which I take terribly, and Iceman squeezes me out, gives me a little bump to remember him by. Like I said at the time, it's karma, but what the hell just happened? How did I get past Iceman at the end? Did he have a timeout or something? He must have had a penalty. I beat him on a penalty, I'm guessing. Okay, 4th place, and who's driver of the day, just out of curiosity? Mativati. Not surprised. He did a damn good job. And all I was trying to do was trying to stay out of trouble and didn't do a good job of that. Oh yeah, I had the slowest fast time of anybody on the course. No surprise I had a busted wing the whole way around. Incidents, DNF, no. Iceman had that stolen from him, I think. And that's a sample of my early experiences on the F1 2020 Open Lobbies in ranked racing. Thanks to everybody who made this sort of thing possible, but I think now you'll understand why I don't stream this stuff. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe if you like this sort of thing, and I'll be back on F1 2020 before too much longer. Have fun, and remember, don't drive like me.